So welcome everyone to August, the month, but also to the Brain Jam. I am Meg Bolger. If you don't know me or you know me only via email, this is what I look like. And I'm really excited to see what all of you put some faces to names for all of you as well. So today's Brain Jam, we are going to get into Airtable. So we do Brain Jams every month here at Facilitator Cards, where we explore a new tool, technique, or technology that can help enhance our facilitation practice. Today's, I would say, is something I use more behind the scenes in my facilitation practice than in the moment, but I'm really excited to see what creative ways we can get into using it in the moment. And when I say behind the scenes, I think of the collecting RSVPs, getting feedback forms, getting information from my participants, providing them more information afterward, whether that's a resource list or even just organizing my ideas and thoughts. I use Airtable for just about all of that. And so we'll get into a bunch of different use cases that I know of, and then I think we'll create some use cases that none of us have probably ever thought of before, which is really exciting to me. So just to give you a sense of where we're going and what the flow will look like, we are going to start in a moment with all of you filling out an Airtable form. Then we're going to use that Airtable form in our demo. We'll get into some like really cool ways you can see and use that information in different capacities. We'll do a little bit of brainstorming, and then if we have time, we will build a sample thing together. So the first demo will just be to watch. Ideally, the second demo will be a little bit of a build along. And all of that is going to happen in hour one. In hour two, we'll get into way more in the weeds. If you're like, wait, I thought we could get into this, or like, I have questions about this, all of that is great for hour two. And if you want to start building a specific Airtable to one of your projects, or want to see how to build out something that you're really excited about from hour one, that is a perfect reason to stick around for any and all of hour two, which is when we go into the weeds and have fun exploring there. So without any further ado, I am going to send a link to all of you in the chat. And what I would like you to do is probably going to take 3 or 4 minutes for you to fill out that form. And we will use this in a lot of different ways throughout the Brain Jam. If you get at the bottom of the form, though, it's going to ask you, are you okay with us like sharing this information? There's nothing super private on it, just wanted to give you the option or not. Either way, though, please fill it out, and I will stop talking to give you all time to focus over there. And I'll come back here in about 2 minutes. If anyone has questions, feel free to message me directly in the chat. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and take 2 minutes to do this. If you want to turn off your video while you're typing and then turn it back on when you're done, that will help me get to know the timing of the group. Okay. All right, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and finish up and hit submit at the bottom of the form. Make sure you check that last question if you do want to like see the results of your form in the Brain Jam and live. All right. So for anybody who joined late, I'm going to send this just one more time because you can fill out this form anytime and it will just auto update whatever we're about to get into. So if anyone missed it, I'm going to send it one more time and that'll be the last one. What we're going to shift into now is you all just filled out a form. I'm going to show you the back end and do a little bit of demo of kind of how does Airtable work and make sense of that information? How is it similar? And maybe how is it similar to like stuff that we're probably really used to with Google Forms or other Excel kind of spreadsheet looking forms? And then also where it is radically different. Because my OBS is not working today, I am going to be using traditional screen sharing, which means that the chat often disappears on me. So if somebody is throwing things into the chat because they're lost or they're like, what is happening? I'm going to ask one of two things. One is for you all to feel free to respond to that person. If you're like, oh, I know what's happening, I can help. Please feel free to help. And if you're like, oh, I don't know what's happening either, Meg, you got to stop. We've got a problem here. You can somebody has to unmute and tell me because the chat is almost impossible to observe when you are screen sharing. So you are all facilitators of varying stripes, and I believe we can do this together. Okay, let's go in and see the info that you just created. So go away. Okay, perfect. So this is the form that you all just filled out. This is what it looks like in Airtable. And it's pretty basic. If you know how to create a Google form, you can create one of these. And what that information, where that information goes is into a different view in Airtable. That's what they call them, different views. Basically, it's how do we look at this information, but in a different way. So the first way I'm going to show you is into this public grid view. So this is essentially the Google Sheets version of Airtable. And everybody who filled this out, who said that it was okay, who gave a thumbs up on that last question, it's okay for you to show this information on Airtable, that is the only information that we are seeing. Because I have a filter on this view where share publicly has to be checked. So the first thing I really love about Airtable that I want to highlight is that you can create different views to show you different information without having to separate or put that information in different places. So if, for instance, I say, you know what, I don't want you to share this anymore, that information is just going to disappear from this view, but not disappear from the database, right? I still have access to that in this essentially master spreadsheet up here. And if I don't want it to be seen in this view, then I don't have to see it. That's handy for a lot of different reasons, which we can get into. But one of them is that I can share this view with all of you and make sure you're only seeing the people who said it was okay, right? And I can also put myself back in there just by checking that box again. And now I'm back here up at the top. So this view is something we're probably pretty used to seeing in terms of manipulating data or seeing information collected in a spreadsheet. One thing that for me brings a lot of anxiety when it comes to spreadsheet is sorting the information, right? So if I'm like, okay, I want to see people in alphabetical order, or I want to only see the people who are in the US, or I want to sort it by country so that I can see what's coming in there. In Google Sheets or in Excel, when you sort that column, I always get that nervousness of like, is it going to sort the whole sheet or is it going to ruin my data? And with Airtable, you cannot ruin that data because sorting and grouping and all of those things look really different. So one thing that's tricky about the US is we all have different ways of signifying that we're there. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this real quick. Okay. So now I can say, okay, you know what? I want to group by country. And it will move your data into those groups. You can even collapse them if you want to see it more cleanly. And we can see the data just by, we haven't changed views. We're just manipulating it within the view. I can do that on the back end, but you can also do that as anybody who receives this link on the front end. So let's imagine for a moment that we are all, instead of participants in a 1-hour training, we're all actually signed up to go to a retreat together. And we're going to be spending 5 days together, and we want to get to know who is going to be there, just like a little bit about them before they arrive, right? I might want to know a lot of information about you, and I might want to be able to share the list of participants with you, with the participants, and only give you a slice of that information. So I'm going to go ahead and create a view where all you're going to be able to see is where people are from, the type of facilitation they do, and the adjectives. You filled out more information than that, right? But this is all that I want you as participants to be able to manipulate or see. So I can go in and share this view and copy this. And I'm actually going to stop and show you how this looks on your end. So I'm going to send that view now in the chat, and you can open that up and see that we just kind of made like an instant database. And if you look at the top, you'll see that there's the option to sort or to group or to filter. So you can actually do that as somebody who receives that link. You can group the people, or you could sort them, or you could filter them. Maybe for a group of participants that's 20 people long, that's not going to be that interesting or that relevant. But let's say we have a conference and you want to filter, I want to see if there's anybody else in my state going so that I can like carpool with them or like know ahead of time that this person is someone I should look out for. You could do that with this. Okay. So before we all get lost into that world, I'm going to show you a couple other things before we come back and talk more. So spreadsheets are a decent, this is like, I think, the better looking version of a spreadsheet, right? It's pretty interesting looking, it's pretty fun to manipulate, but it's still a spreadsheet, which is limited, interesting to look at. And it's not something I want to spend a lot of time exploring. So let's go back to, okay, let's go back to me screen sharing for a moment. So in Airtable, we have this grid view. That's what we've been looking at so far, but you can also make a view called a gallery view. And now we're going to look at this information in a completely different way. So instead of seeing just a spreadsheet, we're now seeing basically cards of this view, right? And again, I can choose what's in the cards or not. And I can share these this card view the same way that I am sharing the link to the spreadsheet that we just did. So this is neat. One layer up from this is that all of this is live updating. And all of this is really easy to use, both to create, like, I think, entire kind of what feels like an instant website. Like if you wanted to send this view to somebody and be like, here's all the participants in the Brain Jam, this would feel kind of like a little mini database or a little mini website, which I think is really cool in terms of resource lists, which is another way that I use this. Just to show you really quickly, like here's a resource that I curate every month at Facilitator Cards. We send out a mailing and we have something called the Inspiration Station. Here's all of the resources we've shared in the Inspiration Station. Way more interesting to look at than just a list of things, and sortable, filterable, all of those things. There's one more thing I want to show you before we come back together, which is that if you want to take this and embed it into a website, that takes about 10 seconds. So Facilitator Cards is built on like a pretty sophisticated, like custom built code website. Most of us probably have, if you're part of a big team, you might have one of those. If you are a regular person with no coding skills, you use drag and drop editors, which are Wix and Weebly and Squarespace and all of those things. Every one of the major ones of those is going to have a thing that's called embed custom HTML code. So you come up here to share view, you hit embed on your website, and it will give you the code. So I embedded the link to the view yesterday, even though we didn't have the information yet, on megbolger.com, which is a drag and drop Weebly super basic website. And this is what it looked like yesterday because none of you all had filled out your information. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the page. And you're all there. So this, and again, it's not just sortable in like a spreadsheet that you can manipulate, it's sortable on my website. So again, I can filter and say, okay, I just want to see folks who, let's see, I want to see who the quiet folks are. Okay, I want to see who the talkative folks are. Okay, who are the organized people? Excellent. Like, and I can do all of that, which I might not do every time, but I can do all of that on the website if I want. Oh, I'm not trying to advertise. Okay.
Hey, Meg.
Yes.
Could I ask you a question? For someone who obviously didn't read the whole question, just uploaded a photo of myself that I keep seeing. As you can tell, am I able to just change that like on the form on my end? Because I know you said it automatically updates. How would I do that?
So you can't, that is one, I would say, drawback or issue with Airtable, is that once you submit it as a user, I have kind of like superpowers over that, but you can no longer access it. So one thing I can do, Kat, is first of all, if you're like, please don't put my face everywhere.
No, I don't really care.
Okay, perfect. But
I'm the like talkative funny one. It'll be all right. And thank you Facesolves for saying that it was a beautiful photo. I was coming up with ways I was going to like spin it. Like I travel everywhere for work. So I am my location or things like that.
That's a great spin. So you can't edit it. You would have to email me and be like, can you change the thing, and just send me a new thing, and I would put it in, no problem. I can delete it right now, and that way every time it shows up anywhere in the rest of this brain jam, if it does, this is pretty much the end of where you'll see it. We can get rid of it. Or if we were collaborating on that and you had editing permissions to that document, then you would be able to edit it, but not as like a participant user.
Do you have to, I was just going to say, yeah, do you have to be like pro and connect and collaborate in Airtable to be able to share and edit?
So Airtable, honestly, I think is sometimes better free, because if you have the paid version and I was like, hey, Kat, can you collaborate with me on this gallery? I would have to pay for the access to bring another person in. But if it's free, it's completely free.
Oh, like, wow. Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. Sorry for not reading the question.
That's okay. I was like, I like it. I think it's bold, and I loved the photo. Yes, Zeus.
I'm here. I'm here.
I was going to say two things. One, could Kat like resubmit, just use the form to send in a new one, and you could delete the old one? Okay.
100%.
And then the other one, if we go back to the grid for a second, can we just talk about how funny we all are? Like, I think there were 2 people who didn't choose funny. So
I saw that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. People could just resubmit it, and then you could very easily just kind of uncheck or delete their old one, and their new one would be instantly live.
If you were to update the form, so like, let's say you were going to take this and use it somewhere else, and create some additional questions, how would that change your old data?
So it just would leave those cells empty.
Okay.
Yep, it would just leave those cells empty. And you can, yep, it would just leave them empty, and it wouldn't touch the old data. Yeah. So that was a deep dive demo for 10 minutes into like all of the capacities, or into a lot of the capacities and some of the use cases where I use Airtable. I didn't go into like how it replaces Google Forms, because hopefully, like specifically just in that, I hope seeing the form and the spreadsheet, you can kind of see, okay, that's how RSVPs would work. That's how feedback forms would work. But I think some of the things I wanted to show you is some of the things that are a little bit more less obvious to use cases for it. Yeah, Angela, go ahead.
Can you upload your own data, like an Excel spreadsheet, to start manipulating it?
Yep.
I saw a dedupe feature and I was like, Excel is too hard for my brain to figure out how to dedupe. So if this can do it, I am like all over that.
When you start, what they're called is a base in Airtable. When you start a new base, it'll say, do you want to start from scratch, or do you want to start with existing data? And you could upload your whole existing data. I do that for all of my credit card financial transactions, is to like upload a spreadsheet of 1,000 transactions.
So what was your password again for your?
It was 9021. Okay. Yeah. Great question. Any other questions that folks have, not about Airtable in general? We will get to those, but more about that help you wrap your mind around what is, like, you're like, can I do this on Airtable? Or is like, how would it work for this? Something that would allow you to understand the functionalities a little bit better, because what we're about to go into is some brainstorming around those functionalities. Any questions that people know they have right now?
I guess, Meg, you said you mostly use this on like the back end of your facilitation. And I will say, for my work, we've used it like to share things with people, but not necessarily in an interactive way.
Yeah.
Do you find that it works best in like real time for this kind of, people sort of like giving their ideas in the moment, or more for like asynchronous collaboration?
I think it can work for both. So one thing I'll say, like, I'll give 2 really different use cases. One is that before facilitator cards were a real thing, we were collecting, sorting, and like categorizing all of that information. Like, okay, this, 5 whys is a clarification process that's full group. All of that stuff was on Airtable, right? And so it was just like an information collection source. And that's one kind of far end of the spectrum. The other is what I'm about to have us do, which is we're going to use it to generate some ideas. I've never used it this way, and I wanted to try it out and see how it goes. So I'm going to send you a link. Yeah, I'm going to send you a link. We're going to do this one individually, Angela, so no worries about the feeling like a newbie. I'm going to send you a link to in the chat. Boop. And there is, let's say there's 12 of us. We probably won't get to 100. I'm going to aim for 50. So here's how we're going to do this activity. What I'd like you to do when I say start, or you can start if you're somebody who reads directions and just wants to go, you can ignore me and just start. But I'm going to give us 2 minutes as a group to try to come up with 50 bad ideas, or sorry, 50 ideas, good, bad, or meh. Like, it's just not exciting. So 50 ideas, they can be good, they can be bad, they can be meh, on how we could use Airtable before, during, or after our facilitations. Okay, if you're stuck, try to put in a bad idea, try to put in a meh idea. I'm gonna give us 2 minutes. Let's see if we can get to 50.
Is each idea a single submission, or do you put, okay.
Yes, each idea is a single submission. Once you hit submit, it will be very quick. It'll be very obvious how to resubmit. Any other questions before we do 2 minutes? Okay, go, if you haven't already. Okay, time's up. Okay. We did it. 52 ideas in 2 minutes. So I can scroll through this, but I think it'll be actually even a little bit easier if you all scroll through this. So let me share the view that I just created. And you can just give a look for a minute or two over what are all the different ways that we came up with to use this software in our facilitations. And I'm just going to share my screen for anybody who ends up watching the recording and is like, I don't have that link. Although I'll send it to them as well. It's in the doodly doo. Okay. So as I saw these coming in, oh my gosh, people are still submitting. I love it. Overachievers. That should have been a category in the personality trait. Overachievers. Also not listening to directions, but I think those sometimes go hand in hand. Okay, so while you all were submitting and these came in, I picked a few of them that we could use to, oh, it's still happening, that we could use to build out in our second demo. So let's see. Okay. So I picked a couple. I picked 5. So here, I'm going to bring you back to Zoom. If you're still looking off, if you're still kind of looking at the bad ideas off of Zoom, I'm going to bring you back to Zoom, because what I'm going to ask you all to do is to, whoa, all right, is to vote using annotation on which of these ideas do you want to build out as a group. So if you, I've forgotten where this is. Can somebody who knows where this is in the annotation feature tell the group how to access the stamp feature in their annotations?
Yeah, Meg, I can.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, so everyone, if on the top of the screen, if you click on View Options, you will see a drop down. You can click Annotate, and you should see a toolbar pop up at the top of your screen. And one of those options there will be Stamp. It's, at least in mine, it's more in the middle.
And if you can stamp the one that you're excited to explore, we will see what gets the most votes. Are people moving and deleting their votes? Because I swear I see votes and then they disappear. Maybe indecisive should have also been one of those categories. Okay, I'm seeing pre-conference survey. Okay, I think we're going to call it. We're going to call it a pre-conference survey. We've got four for that one, so I'm going to call it for that one. And we're going to stop this share. We're going to build that out. Okay, so rather than just watching me do Airtable, what I want to invite you to do now is I want you, if you have an Airtable account and you want to build along, then I'm going to have you open up Airtable and open up what is called a base, like basically start from scratch a brand new document. And if you're like, I do not want to build along, that sounds anxiety producing and I just want to watch, then you have a different role. You're going to help me come up with the questions that we would put on the pre-conference survey. So can you, maybe if you're up for helping me with the questions of the pre-conference survey, would you unmute so that I know who you are?
Hey,
Okay.
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Awesome. Okay,
Hi.
so I see Sarah and I see Zuzka. Okay, wonderful. So Sarah and Zuzka, could you all talk a little bit about what you think you would want on a pre-conference survey for participants? And maybe just like five things, no more than 5 things. And as you do that, I'm going to get set up to create this new base with people.
Meg, if we're creating a long, do we do start from scratch?
Start from scratch.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so for me, I would just like to know the basic stuff like name, address, where they live, yeah, things like that. How about you, Yuska?
I would like the basics, but I'd also like things that will help me, like me and the participants connect with each other. So, you know, like for example, some of the things I've answered this time, right, that would like get people interested in talking to each other if they saw those cards. So, you know, like hobbies, fun interests, kind of like ask me about, you know, as a prompt, or yeah, and I love the pictures too, because I think it gets people kind of engaged. So definitely asking for a picture. I know that's just redoing what you've done in the first activity.
That's okay.
And then, yeah, potentially, I mean, if you're going to send out like a post-conference gift, maybe like asking them like whatever parameters you might want, if there's going to be some kind of like difference or like for allergies or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, we've got a ton of ideas here. Okay, so so folks who are building along, I am going to show you what I'm doing and try to create the form that Sarah and Zuzka just talked about. We're going to have to pick and be selective. So we'll try to do different kind of categories. So you can, oh, sorry,
Irene
go ahead,
Irene had a great addition when she said the picture can be of what inspires you or something like that.
Nice.
So,
cool.
Just in chat.
So there are 2 ways we could build this out in Airtable. We can build this out as basically the form first, where we can build out the different categories and be more specific about kind of how it will look on the form, or we can build it out in the grid and turn the grid into a form. So I'm going to start with the grid, and because you can phrase questions really differently in the form, but the end information that you want to end up with, that's what we start with in the grid. So again, for anybody who's building along, you want to have started a new base from scratch. Doesn't matter about the title. If you want to name it like first build or demo build, you can do that. And then we want to have a blank table. And when you start a blank table in Airtable, it's going to look like this. Okay, so we're going to do really basic stuff to start off. So let's, instead of the name feature being here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete things. So let's go ahead and touch the arrows in the top right corner, and we're going to go ahead and delete that field. So we want to delete all the fields except for the name field. It won't let you delete that because that's basically like the field that's holding all of the information together. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a first and last name. The reason I like those being separate is because you can end up sending an email just to their first name rather than like, hey, Meg Bolger, which always feels really, really kills, I think, the feeling of informality that we're going when we try to get their information. So we're going to go up here and press this plus. We're going to name the field, first name, and then we're going to select single line text. Basically, not a lot of text. We just need a little bit. And we're going to hit create field. Oh, because this is a brand new Airtable, it's going to give you all these like pop-ups. Just ignore them. Hit dismiss everywhere. So we're going to do that for first name, and we're going to do that again for last name. So again, name the field, last name or surname if you're across the pond. And now we've got these two, first name, last name. So what we can do now is we can turn this name field, actually, we'll do that in a bit. Please ignore what I just said. Okay, we've got first name, we've got last name. Zuzka or Sarah, can you give me a field that you would like to see on this form that isn't something people would type in, something they would select, like a checkbox or from a category, a list of options?
Something like allergies or special needs.
Okay, great. So accessibility requests. Okay, so we're going to have accessibility requests, and we're going to do multiple selection so that you can have multiple accessibility requests, right? So we'll do multiple select, and we can go ahead and add options. I'm just going to add a couple off the top of my head. So we've got vegan, we've got wheelchair user, we've got scent, multiple chemical sensitivity issues. We've got translation, and we've, well, what's that?
Colorblind or
Colorblind.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So now we've got, and obviously you don't need to do these. I just want to give you this demonstration. You could just put vegan and translation. You don't have to do all 5. I just want to kind of show you how it works. So again, we've got the title, we've got in multiple selection, and then we've got these different options. So we're going to hit create field. Okay, let's do the photo field. So we're going to do photo. And we don't need to give more of a description because that's just what we're going to do in the form. That's where we'll tell people what kind of photo we want, right? So the photo is an attachment because it's something that they're going to upload. And you can actually search. I was just trying to find attachment. It's right here, but you can actually search for it right here in the find a field type. So I'm going to hit attachment. Okay, so that's our photo. We've got accessibility requirements. What other type of thing do I want to show you? Something that you might want to know on the back end is, when was this created? Like, when did they submit this? Maybe you have a requirement to submit by a particular time in order to have those accessibility requirements. So I'm going to say submission time. And then scroll way down here to the bottom. And this is something that Airtable can create automatically, which is, when was this created? When was that information submitted into the spreadsheet? So that field is called created time. And you can get more special with that if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it as is. And we've apparently already made 3, there we go, records. Okay, one more field. Sarah or Zuzka, one more field for us to create.
What are the other types of fields that we have that we haven't?
So we can
before?
do single selection where they only have one option. We could do that. We could do an email. We need to know their information.
Mm-hmm.
Single selection, let's do that really quick. So this is for like take home. Do you want a tote bag, or do you want a charger stick, or nothing? Too much stuff in my life. Okay. All right. Oop, discard empty field. All right. So now we've made the grid, and if we go into the form, we can now add the information in. I don't want them to fill out that. So I just did that too quickly. Let me show you what I'm doing. So in the form field, everything will show up either here or on the left side of the fields. And you don't have to let people submit information just because you want that information, right? So because we're asking first and last name, I want to hide or remove it from the field, the name information, because I'm going to do that a different way. For accessibility requests, you can add a lot more information if you want, like please check all that apply. And you can have this as a dropdown or as a list. So the dropdown will look like this when they fill it out, and the list will look like this when they fill it out. Yes, Irene.
When you're creating the columns for the different categories of questions,
yep.
Is it possible to move, you know, the way you do it in Excel, where you move the column? I assume that we came and, oh, okay, yeah, all right, okay.
Just like that?
Yes. Yeah, because I was thinking, yeah, you might come and decide, no, I want the last name first instead of the first name, and yeah, thanks.
Not only can you do it in the form or in the spreadsheet, but you can do it in the form and it won't affect the spreadsheet. So if you were like, I want the photo to be right at the top here, that's the first thing I want. If people only answer one question, it's the photo. And in the grid, it'll be in the exact same place, like that it was.
That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Totally. Kat.
Can you set something up where like they can only choose, maybe only have 20 tote bags. So once all the tote bags are taken, that option can only be selected 20 times.
That's a great question. I don't know how to do that, but it's not that I think it couldn't be done. There's really powerful formulas, ways to build formulas into Airtable. And I wonder if you could do it with that. So let me show you like the world's most basic formula, just to show you what I mean. So I like to put the name field as a formula so that I can customize it. So instead of doing it as a single text, I do it as a formula. And I'll say, please put their first name. I just want to see their first name there. Or maybe first name and submission time. You're not going to see any of this because it has no information. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, that looks clunky AF. Okay, let's fix it. There we go. Okay, now it has a space. I'm gonna add a dash. Okay, so this formula, all it's doing is putting the name, my name from this first name column, and then the information from the submission time column into there. So there might be a formula that you could do where it says like only show these options. The other thing that I'm wondering if you could do is basically once you can do a lot of things with automations where I'll give you a real example. So let's say I want to have a grid where this is vegans. And I only want to see people who say that they are vegan. They can have other things selected, but they have to be vegan to show up in this grid, right? When I get a vegan, snag them. Once you have somebody who submits that they're vegan, they're going to show up in this view, right? And you can do a lot of automations with that view. So you can have it send them an email. You could be like, hey, tell us specifically, do you have any other things? Like you can't eat mushrooms or you can't do this. Like you could have that automatic email only be sent to vegans, people who show up in this view. Or you could have like, when we have 30 vegans once we've got 30 people who are vegan, then you need to tell me because I need to alert the staff, right? Or like once the 15th tote bag has been purchased, I'm going to take that option off of the form. So I don't know a way to automate it, but I do know a way to make it simpler for you to do. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So it can send you can like set up different types of notifications, and then it can email you when you sort of, whatever notification comes up.
Yep.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. So it can send you a Slack message. It can send you an email if you build in your email to it. The email that you all got with the like, hey, thanks for RSVPing. Here's the information on how to get Airtable and how to where the link is. That first email was sent from Airtable. Yep. Okay, I'm coming back. Yes. Oh, Sarah's clapping, not hand up. Okay, awesome. So I'm coming back. Folks who built your Airtable. Where'd you get to? How'd it go? What'd you think? Thumbs up.
I was wondering, Meg, how when we were submitting the 50 bad ideas, how you created that view with like the 5 you picked that quickly.
Yeah, sure. I can show you that. And then we'll move into a little bit of kind of closing down and wrapping up. So let me head back to the screen share here. Okay, so this was the form, 50 bad ideas. Something else that I customized that I liked is you can customize what it shows people once they submit the form. So I said, how else could you do it? And it felt like a really easy way to get you to click again, right? Rather than just like, thanks for submitting it. It's nice to be able to customize that. So what I did is I had a field that you couldn't see or fill out in the form, and it was called chosen. And so as I watched them come in to the grid view, this is what I was looking at when all of you were submitting your information. When I saw one that I was like, oh, that would be cool, we could build that out, I just put a star next to it. So I had that column already existing. I just hit it from your view as the form user. And then I already had, I knew I was going to do that, right? So I had another view, another gallery view, where the filter is set to only show the ones that are chosen. So even before you all submitted any information, I had the whole like flow set up. I just needed the information to come in order to kind of activate it. And so I was able to watch, the things come in and just go like, boop. And then that one just got added. And that's why.
Could you show us quickly how to create a new view?
Yes. So down here at the bottom, on the left-hand side, we didn't even like, we have scratched the surface, but also like not scratched the surface. We have covered a lot in the Brain Jam. So we covered grid views, form views, and gallery views. And all you need to do is just select the view. It will show up. You can name it whatever you want. And then if you want to, again, like filter or sort that view in any way, you can do that by filtering. And so that's all I did with this. This is like, these are the non-chosen ones. Or I can change that to be the chosen ones and it will all instantly update. So that's how you create a view. There, like I said, there are a couple we didn't get into. There's Kanban boards for those who are looking for project organizers. There's Gantt charts, which are a pro feature. I don't use them that much anyway, but that's there for those who want it. And you can also do a calendar view. That's again, more into the project organization part, but it all manipulates the same information, right? It's just showing you in different ways and categorizing it in different forms. So yep, that's all you have to do. Just hit that button, name the view, set it up however you want, and you've got that new view. You can now share that view specifically, or you can use it in different ways. This is how, oh yeah, Zusia, go for it.
Oh, sorry. If you want to finish your thought, I can ask after.
I was just going to say, this is how I end up using one form for all of the RSVPs that I've ever created for the Brain Jams. I'm not going to show you because it's hard to make sure that I'm like hiding everybody's information appropriately. But basically, I have views that instead of showing like instead of showing everybody, it'll just show August, or I have another view for July. And that way I can use the same form, but have only the people that I want to see for that month in a view. And that way the link, the RSVP, I can have one RSVP in the whole of the internet living out there for people to access, but actually change it and update it every month.
That's awesome. I really like that. I was going to ask, maybe this is like a 201 question.
Yeah.
My understanding of relational databases like this is that there's a key field, right? Like there's
Yes.
a database key. Does that mean that, like, for example, if we did the first, if we started out our facilitation with like literally the first activity that you had us do of like putting in, you know, our names, pictures of where we lived, and say our email, like something that would be unique, right? Yep. That if I wanted to do like a second activity or third activity during the same event, where I wanted them to add to that, could I like spin up another form, make sure that they put in their email, and would that match it to their previous record? No.
That's the one thing that I would say, like, or if that's true, I don't know how to do it. So I want to caveat that, because there's a world of Airtable, and I am a professional facilitator and not a professional Airtable person. As much as this brain jam might have led you to believe otherwise, this is like all from just being a facilitator geek and trying to figure out how to do these things. So if you can do that, I don't know how to do it. It's not obvious to me how to do it, because I want that to be true. And anyone sticking around for hour 2, like, let's go and Google and see if we can find that, because like people sign up, as you know, Zuzka, for multiple months of brain jams, but you have to refill out the form every time. And I would love to be able to be like, here's your form, you know, like just edit your field. I just, do you want to come to July? Check, you're good, right? I know all of the other pieces, but I don't know how to do that. And I don't know if it does exist. But we can explore that in hour 2. So that's a good segue into our wrap up. So I would love to know if, just as like a little bit of closing, I would love to invite everyone to share in the chat one thing that either you, oh no, I love this. I learned this last brain jam. One thing that rocked, one thing that stuck, or one thing you want to leave behind. It's called rock, stick, and leaf. One thing that rocked, one thing, you don't have to do all of them, but you can. You can do one thing that rocked, or one thing that is sticking with you, or one thing you want to leave behind. Throw that in the chat, and that will be a nice little closing to our hour 1. I'll give you a moment to do that before I tell you what's coming up hour 2 and do any other wrap up. Rock, stick, and leaf. Shout out to Robin for introducing that wrap up. Everybody loves a good dad joke. Parent joke. I think that's probably have to make it gender neutral now, 2021. Okay, just seeing folks coming in. So one thing I will share, kind of in response to what Sarah said about like not really fully understanding it. Airtable is built, I would say, by engineers for people with like engineering minds. And it takes my liberal arts brain a lot sometimes to figure out, like, there are things I still use Google Sheets for. If I want to like just add a column up and then add it to this cell and I'm not being very organized, doing that stuff in Airtable is miserable. Like if you want to be disorganized and a mess on a spreadsheet, it's very hard to be disorganized in Airtable. So that's a really good use case to keep using Google Forms for those moments. But I will say that when you are like, oh, I know what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to sort all of my participants in this way. Or I know that I want to just like track these resources I keep sending out to my participants. Like, you know, I keep recommending podcast episodes and I want to have a way to sort them and categorize them and filter them for people. Like when you know the use case, then it becomes like a really powerful tool. And I think it's one of the best free tools on the internet. So it's something that I hope I hope you all get a lot of value out of using it if you want to keep doing that. So hour 2, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep nerding out and go even more into any of the things that you wanted to ask, but you didn't get to in hour 1. So whether that's the automations, whether that's how we use this more for facilitator cards, like I can show you more of that. And if you wanna like build out a project together or work on your own, all of that is available in hour 2. Last thing before people start jumping off, which is gonna happen right now. If you can open up those 3 links before you go, I'll also send them in a form, like an email afterward. But Card Sharks is our next event for facilitator cards coming up at the end of the month. If you have a deck of facilitator cards and you want to know how to use it, or you want to get a deck of facilitator cards so you can learn how to use it, we're going to do that at the end of the month. And the RSVP is on Airtable, and the link right there. If you want to watch hour 2, but you got to jump, we'll put it up on our YouTube channel and you can subscribe and then you'll get a notification when that goes live. Last thing is the feedback form for the Brain Jam. Because we do these on a regular basis, I really appreciate and love getting feedback on how it went. Was it what you expected? What did you want different? You all know how valuable that is as facilitators and also how hard it is to get people to do them. So if you can do me a solid and do the feedback form now or later, super, super appreciate that. Thank you all so much for coming. We're ending like 30 seconds before. And if you are sticking around for hour 2, we're gonna take a 2-minute break and then come back together. But if not, and you're signing off, feel free to unmute, give us a wave. It was so great to connect with folks all around the world today. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again for another fantastic session. We'll see you next month or whenever.
Bye. All right, if you're like, I'm going, let's do this hour 2 crew. We are gonna take like a 2-minute break. I need to refill water and figure out if I can get airflow into this room. And we'll come back in 3 or 4 minutes and keep on building. Okay, so what I'd love to do, just to like bring us back together, is I'd love to know if there is anything specifically that you would like to get out of hour 2. If you're like, I'm sticking around because I want to do this, or like I have these questions, or I'd really like to see this part of the back end. I'd love to know that. If you're like, I'm just sticking around because I want to know what other people want to know, that is super legit, and you're super welcome to do that as well. But if we want to just maybe go around and popcorn style, like people can just share whenever they like. I'd love to hear if you have anything to make sure, like, what is it? What do we want to get out of this hour? So anybody up for going first? Awesome, Rebecca, go for it.
So right off the bat, I know that Airtable has a lot of pre-configured, like pre-customized things, and I've gone through them and been like, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that, but I don't wind up using them because I don't really know how to configure them and not break them for my own needs.
Cool. Okay.
Also, I'm curious if you use Airtable as your primary CRM or if you just use it for other things, but if you use it in a CRM capacity, I'd be curious to know just like use cases and what you found it to be useful for.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, cool. Don't feel like they have to be connected. Feel free to take us in totally different directions, Ben.
I'd be really curious to see what Airtable can do in terms of visualizing responses. Like if you can do like graphs or charts or something like that to be able to share out with people that you're sending survey results to, for example, that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Bryn?
I didn't even know that automations were a thing in Airtable. So I would be sort of interested in just like taking a peek at that. I think that's the main thing. And yeah, I guess I would echo Rebecca, just like getting a better sense for like how this tool fits into your like universe of tools. So I think of Airtable as like a database tool that looks prettier than Excel. So if you have to show people the database, it's nice to use Airtable. But yeah, just like the ways you think about it and fit it into your sort of quiver of different options.
Cool. Zuzka or Sarah?
I had the question about whether you could link things via a key field, but during the 3 minutes I kind of did a little bit of snooping around the internet and found people like immediately going to like scripting or Python or APIs to like get it done, and I was like, that's more than I want to do. So
you're like,
I haven't found.
Oh no, you can't.
No. I mean, like the easiest thing that people showed was that you could link 2 tables and have the key field match them, but I think that still kind of like leaves you a little bit short of it, like deduping or creating new fields or whatever else. So but yeah, but I'm here for everyone, sister.
Sarah, anything for you?
No, I don't have any specific questions.
Okay, perfect. What I'm doing right now, if you're like, why is Meg looking off to the side? It's because I'm making an Airtable of just the people who are here. And I just needed to do, I wanted to do that really quick. So I could be like, how familiar are you with Airtable? Like, you've already told me that information. So I'm just getting that information now. So where should we start? So one thing I actually would love to get a sense of too is, would people, and maybe we can share this out loud, but do you have a sense of whether you'd like to like practice or build more in Airtable, or just get more senses of Airtable? And like, do we want to do a project together or just like explore the functionality? Do people have a sense of which of those they're feeling more inclined towards? Get a sense, is that what 2 is? Get a sense. Okay. I'm seeing nods and kind of indifference. So that's great. That's great to know. Okay, let's see, hour 2. Okay, so we've got a range, but like some people had started with Airtable to different degrees. Okay, great. It's great to know. I love so I'll share, because you said it was okay to share this publicly, so I'm going to do that. Bryn has the most experience, but doesn't necessarily love learning new technologies, which I love. I just think that's a really great meeting in the middle. So we can start going into some more of the automations beyond a pretty database. And if folks want to be unmuted, just because it's a small group of us, and if you want to do that, please feel free to do that. That way, if you laugh, we'll hear you. If you are like, "Ooh, question," like we'll hear you, and you won't have to fiddle around with the mute unmute. If you're like, "I don't want to do that because I have a barking dog," or "I am the barking dog and I sneeze a lot," whatever it is, feel free to not. People have gotten really used to not having somebody hear them sneeze, and it's I was doing an in-person workshop recently, and it freaked people out to have somebody hear them sneeze again recently. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's see. Automations in Airtable and beyond the pretty database. So I think that's where I was thinking we could start, and then again, please interrupt me at any point. This hour 2 is for you. And if you have questions or ideas, I want to hear them. I want to hear them as much as I want everybody else to hear them. So let me go into sharing my screen for a second here. So I'm going to bring it back here. There we go. Okay, so automations in Airtable. You can see all of my automations. So for facilitator cards, we basically keep all of the information in a single, almost all of the information that we use in a single base, which is interesting. Basically, you can have infinite numbers of tables in a base, or you can create different bases for different projects. We, for some reason, have decided to mostly just do one thing with a bunch of different tabs. And so that's why we have so many automations in here. So there are automations that you can set up for Slack messages. So every time somebody submits a review of facilitator cards, I get a little Slack message being like, yo, somebody submitted a review. And that's helpful because I don't check that tab a lot, you know? So that's a neat way to use that one. There's ones that I've never done it. And I imagine on big teams are people who use them a lot, like post to Twitter. Okay, cool. Weekly digest. That's awesome. You can create your own custom animation. Airtable is essentially like a way for you to start building apps. And that's how kind of more advanced users use it. And then you can also, this is suggested. So a new automation, it'll give you a bunch of different options. So you can integrate it. You could have it update a spreadsheet. You can have it do different things. The one I use the most is when a record is created or when it enters a view, because as soon as it enters a view, it can enter a view for any reason that you use a filter, right? So let's say, we'll go back to making it a little more concrete. The inspiration station is something that I created just for me to make sure I didn't share the same inspirations every month. I was just like, have I shared this or not? I don't remember. And so I started putting them in here. And when I was building out this Brain Jam, I realized, oh, I could have people submit things to the inspiration station. And so that form exists. Also, I think a life hack is making yourself forms because they're so much easier to fill out sometimes than databases. So I will also use this form. But I could create a view where it's just for podcasts. And the way I do that is to say the filter needs to be for podcasts. And I could create an automation that is like, hey, when we get a new podcast recommendation, go ahead and send me an email. Or when we get a new podcast recommendation, send me an email with the information about this so that I can email that person and be like, hey, is it okay if we share your podcast on the next mailing list? Like, you can do all of that automatically. One thing I will caveat with automations is that they work really well which means if you mess up, Airtable never does. So let's say you have, let's say hypothetically, you have a mailing list of 120 people who have signed up for past brain jams, right? Let me unshare my screen so I can actually get this set up so I can show you. So this is just an example of something I did one time. So we've got 120 people who have RSVP'd for past brain jams, right? And we have the August, I was a different month, but like the July automation that said, anytime someone enters a view for July, please send them a confirmation email, right? And so as long as the filter says July, then you're good, because only the July people are going to get that email. If you change that filter or delete that filter and be like, nah, I want to see everybody in this view, it will then show you all 120 people. And the minute they enter that view, they'll get an email. So I have sent more than once people who shouldn't have gotten an email because they entered, because I changed the settings on the view, and that changed who received the email. So I get a little nervous with Airtable automations now, because I know how fast they are. You do not have time to recorrect. It happens like milliseconds later. So if you're creating an automation and you're having it send to the people who are going to enter that view, just be really clear with yourself to never touch the filter. I like delete the view once I'm done, so that I with that month, so that I don't do that. Does that make sense?
One of the things I like to do if I have something like that is like I will name the tab like emails, like email aught or whatever, so that I know that like this is the one that like directs the emails.
Yep, exactly. That's what I've started doing after those errors. Yeah, yep. So the automations thing is really powerful. They also have an extension for apps. I do think apps are for paid versions only, but somebody was asking, like, is there different ways to, Ben, you were asking, like, is there different ways to display the information? And I think that that's an app rather than a view. So I'll share what I'm looking at right here. So Facilitator Cards does pay for Airtable. Honestly, the first impetus was because you get a lot more colors, and we love colors. So like, instead of it being like 6 colors for these fields, you get 1 million, which was really pretty. So we were suckers for that at first. So the automations thing is up here. Apps is over here. And I really haven't messed with this, Ben, but it would be an interesting thing to play around with. And I don't know if it's, you all can tell me if you have a free account, is this accessible in the free one? I'll go pull up my free account in a second to check out. But that's where you see charts. Let's see, what else is there? Page designer. Yeah, so there's some stuff in here to play around with and to see in terms of making your data even more like beautiful or crunching it in particular ways.
I do think it's
text message.
I do think it's pro though. I can search them and I can see them, but whenever I clicked on it, it said you have to upgrade. So it's good to know. Okay,
cool. So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more there if you are paying. I think it's $12 a month. If you pay annually, something in that range. But honestly, unless you're getting real fancy with it, there's so much you can do with the basics. I never go into apps. I hadn't even thought of it until you asked. Somebody asked about like Bryn, you were saying like, what can you do with this, like beyond being that pretty database? So something that I was thinking of was like, this is a project that I've been like thinking about, is creating a facilitator database for facilitator cards, right? Where people can like submit their information, we can share that out. It can be really easy for people to like sort and filter and like identify people if it was like a region or a type of facilitation or open to new collaborators, right? We could have all of those forms and it would be really easy to sort and find them. And we could have that live just on Airtable. But what I was also thinking is you can have like that integration without even a lot of like coding and making it like it would be very easy to add that to our website, right? To just be able to have something that Airtable is constantly populating and be able to have people go to like facilitator cards / directory, right? And all of a sudden the Airtable pops up and they can filter and they can sort. They can see a little button at the bottom that says like, you know, add yourself to the directory. And if I wanted to, basically that could be live without me having to filter anything, right? So you could see that as soon as you submitted, and it could sort by last entry, that as soon as you submit, you're like, oh, there I am, I'm in the directory. Like that kind of like instant feedback. And I think that sort of like, not even, I don't know if we would feel that as a database, you know what I mean? That's something that that's a use case that I think is beyond like a typical spreadsheet that I can think of as like a really powerful use case for that card view in particular. I think makes that really tempting. And what's cool with the card view is that you can also, you can have just a few things show up, but when you click on it, you can have it expand the record to show even more information. So you can just give people like a snippet and then they could click on it and they could expand it out to get much more information. What do you all think of that idea as people in this community?
That sounds really cool.
I would definitely be interested.
Oh, this disappears. That's fun. Cool. Awesome. So I think that's like one use case beyond the pretty databases. You all had 50 ideas though. Like, so let's go back to that. Let's see. I mean, there really weren't that many bad ones. You all were rocking the, so let me share that link again in case anybody wants to go back to it. Because if anyone looks through that list and is like, hey, I don't understand what somebody was thinking about this, I wish I had asked, and I might in my follow-up. 2 people put energizers, or a couple people put energizers in there. And I was like, I want to know how you would use Airtable for an energizer. Like, I think you could, but I want to know how. So if any of you were that people, I want to know your idea. This idea of using people's characteristics to put them into breakout rooms, that if we had gone, I kind of had a split in my agenda building, but if we had gone the breakout rooms, that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to make sure that each breakout room had someone who had used Airtable before, and sort them into that way. So with 12 people, I think that's like super feasible to be able to purposefully create the breakout rooms like that, especially if you have a co-facilitator who can do that while you're, you know, like the data's there, it's perfectly accessible, and they can do that while you're working through the next activity. Any others of these jump out to folks?
What was exit ticket?
I interpreted exit ticket as essentially like a feedback form, but I often think of it as way shorter, like the world's shortest feedback form. Like 1 or 2 questions on your way out, sort of thing. What did you just share, Zuzka?
You know, it was that link was a lot longer than I thought it would be, but basically I was looking for like cool Airtable examples, and they do have like, I mean, in their like Google ad, they have like 200 plus powerful templates. So yeah, it's just like literally you can look through and find, I guess, templates that ostensibly you could just pull into Airtable and start with. just as a way of kind of thinking of like new ideas of how to use it.
Yeah. With the gallery, the who's who document that I had you all fill out, when you share a view, yeah, yep. So when you share a view, and I'll have you all do this, in Airtable, if you open up that link, in the top right, you'll see a button that says use this data. And if you click that, I believe it will invite it. Let's do this and not pretend we don't have to not do it. Let's see. Do I have another? Okay, it's gonna take me a second because I want to sign into an Airtable. That's not where that data came from. But when you click that, what does it do? Has anyone done that and managed to get to the next step?
It asks if you can choose the workspace that you want to use the data in, and then you can choose the base after that.
Yep. And then it will create that spreadsheet in your Airtable. Does it bring the data into, or just it'll bring the data into, right? Not just the columns.
Yes, it brings the data in.
Yeah. So, so that's cool. Like you now have the template to create the form of what we used. It won't, and this bums me out a little bit, it won't bring in the form exactly, but if you create a view now if you have that data, if you opened that up and pressed use and added it to your Airtable base, you can now create a new view, and all of the information is there to make that form. So that's one way that you can use, you could basically say like, Meg, I really like that who's who, can I have that template? And anything that you create, you can share in Airtable, whether you're a free account or a paid account. There is also a way to share, and we should try this. Let's see. So let's see here. Oh, that's not what I wanted at all. Sorry. I'm going to try to share something like a much bigger table with all of you. Okay. Okay. So let's try this. So I'm going to send you the spreadsheet I'm just making sure there isn't anything like really weird that's going to show up on here. What I want to do is I wanted to share with you the spreadsheet for facilitator cards. Sorry that I've just been like doing things on the back end, but it's a kind of massive spreadsheet. So let me do a couple more things just to make this a little bit more reasonable. And then I'm going to share this with you. And we can see how so there's a thing in Airtable that I wanted to set us up to explore, which is there's a thing called synced bases, where you can have that information in your Airtable, but you can't actually edit it because it edits live from somebody else's Airtable. So I'm going to share, let's see here. Great. Okay, let's try this. Let's see what happens. Okay, so if you open that link, and I'm going to do my share screen so that the folks watching the recording get to see something, but you don't need to watch it. You can just do it on yours. So it's still loading for me because it takes a little minute. Okay, so this is the Airtable for facilitator cards, for the starter deck of facilitator cards. And right now it's grouped by the card colors. emotion, ideation. Also, we color coded them because of course we did. And you can group them by that, or you cannot. You could also decide, you know what, I want them grouped by group size. And you can see, okay, there are 32 full group activities in the deck of facilitator cards. There are 10 pairs, etc. Now, if you hit use this data, you're going to choose a workspace. It can be any. If you have different workspaces, that will become relevant. If you're still pretty new to Airtable, it won't be as relevant. And I'm going to create a new base from this. So at the bottom, you've got two options here, which is really important. Create a synced table to be kept up to date, or copy this data into a new table. So if you were like, I like the table, but there's a couple activities I never use and I really want to swap them out for it, or I want to be able to add my own activities to this database. Like I want to have Meg's, but and facilitator cards is like foundation, but I want to be able to add my own to it. Then you would want to copy this data, right? And then you would have your own set to work on and to build from. But if you create a synced table and you hit create, it'll just take a moment to make it. And then, cool. This is just telling you how often do you want to sync it. It's going to have this little lightning bolt to the left of the tab. And that basically says, this is a synced table. You can't edit this because I have the original table for it. But what that also means is if I add something, it'll get added to yours. So I'll show you what I'm going to need to stop sharing my screen for a sec. So I'm going to change something, and then you all can sync the table and see it instantly update if you've done that so far. So all right, if you go back to your table now, and let's do this again. Okay, so last synced a few seconds ago. How do I make it sync again?
Where it says starter deck on the top left.
Yep.
Just right clicked and there was an option to sync now.
Okay, perfect. So if you get this little drop down and then you hit sync now, when you do that, if you find I'm going to group this to make this a little less wieldy. I'm going to group by category. If you look for the blank emotion card, it should say hello right at the beginning of its explanation. So I think that's really powerful in a couple of ways. We're used to being able to sync information, like having Google Docs update everything live, right? We're all used to that, and that expectation is really cool. But this is where you start getting into definitely 201, 301 categories of Airtable. You can now, you can have a second table in this base, and you can sync information across the bases. So let's see. Oh, it won't let me do this. I'm not going to be able to do it as quickly as I want to be able to. But what you can do is, if you wanted to create like I'm building out a particular workshop, right? And I want to be able to say during the intro, I'm going to use thinking and feeling. And I want it to pull in the information that thinking and feeling is a full group activity with emotion that needs no props. I want that to show up on my agenda. You can now pull this information into this table. I don't know if that made sense. Did that make sense? What questions do you have? I can see if I can do it while you all ask me questions. Or ask each other questions. Or not. But what's cool is yeah, you can now use and manipulate that data without me and know that it's always up to date. And that's like a real, like, I didn't make that as a dummy spreadsheet. If we update the starter deck, you'll now get, you'll now have that update. And you can put it on automation to be like, tell me when Meg adds a new card to this thing. And it'll do that. Okay. So of the things that people wanted to talk about at the beginning, graphs, we did. Automations, we did. Beyond the pretty database, we kind of did. Pre-configured Airtables without breaking them. So Rebecca, do you want to pick a pre-configured Airtable that we can like play around with and see what we can do?
We could together. Zuzka sent the link to what I've been, when I first found Airtable, I went to this link and I was like, oh, look at all the pre-configured ones. This is great. I might use this. I might use this. I might use this, but I haven't used any of them because when I actually open them and dig into them, it's not quite what I need. And I'm not quite sure how to tweak things without just breaking the whole thing. So I feel like we can find one together that would serve all of our needs.
Yeah, let's do that. Anybody sees one? Go ahead.
There's an event planning one. I think that if you just search event planning,
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Use template. Okay, and again, I'm just going to share my screen so that it's on the recording, but don't feel like you need to look at my screen. Okay. Oh, love a good emoji up here in the columns. All right, so is it going to give us a tour? Let's go. Okay, so it's kind of walking you through what they did. Oh, this is just kind of like a general. Huh, that's kind of like an Airtable introduction every time you use it. Okay. Is this where you kind of got to, Rebecca, and then you're like, oh, this is just...
I kind of like collected a bunch of them, but then I haven't gone back into them very much to tweak it. This is exactly what I'm asking.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to keep it rather than clear all their sample data so that we have a better understanding of it. Start building. Okay, I would get rid of this help bar. Oh yeah, okay, cool. You're gonna be able to see the thing I was just talking about in this space. So we've got, just to like walk people through what they're seeing, and then we can talk about like, how would you edit this without breaking it? So we've got the schedule. Aha, full schedule, Thursday schedule. We all know how handy that is. So let's go back to the full schedule. So we've got, okay, opening remarks. It's a keynote. It's going to happen on this time. It's going to end on this time. The reason these fields are really interesting, the start and end time, is because it allows you to do a cool calendar from it. So if you go to the calendar, you can then see, let's do the week view. You can see the start and end time on the calendar. So again, you can then share this view with people who are coming to the attendance, and it would be like more attractive to look at. They've also, go ahead.
Sorry, if you're sharing it, can they choose time zones?
Oh, that's great question. Great question. I think that's a Google question. I don't know the answer.
Sorry.
But what I do know is that this is, include a time field. Aha, right here. Use same time zone for all collaborators. Oh, that's for only collaborators, though. That's not viewers. Well, let's see. Let's see if it does anything. Because this is, I don't know what that means.
I do see that where you were
broke it.
Just the place where you were just looking before that, it said local, under date format local. And so I wonder if there's somewhere that they choose. Oh no, I guess maybe that's local to where you are. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So no, not what I thought it was.
not what I thought it was, but that's a good question. And that feels like a thing that might exist. But I do think it's a Google question. But that's why the start and end times are like that. And also I'll just point out the color, they customize that by a field type. So keynotes are all orange, and that's just a nice thing to do in Airtable. So we've got this full schedule. So what's neat about Airtable is you've got lunch and you're like, okay, the speaker is going to be Stephen. Let's click on Stephen. And now we're actually viewing Stephen's information from an entirely other table. It's pulling in Stephen, it's saying the speaker is this person. And you're like, okay, where's that person's information live? In this table, where their name is the top level piece of information. And if you wanted here to be able to say, no, I'm not going to be able to do that in this example, but that's a really easy way to be able to say okay, I want all of Stephen's information to be attached to him, but I don't want it to be in just this one massive spreadsheet. I want to be able to organize it because I want to be able to send a form to these speakers to fill out, right? And I want all of their information to live in the speaker database, but I want that database to talk to this one. So that's where.
Do you think?
Yeah,
do you think you could show how to set that up, that speaker column? Could you just recreate it so that we know how to do it?
Yep. Let's try it. Let's see how much I can break this thing. Okay. Delete link field. Okay. That's what we're about. Okay. So here it is. Once you have more than one of these tabs or tables in a Airtable, then you can link across them. So you'll see a new field type open up, and it's going to say link to another record. And so I want this to link to the speaker record. Create field. And when it's okay, what do you want to know? Do you just want to know their name? Or do you also want to pull in whether they're confirmed or not? So let's pull in their name, and let's also pull in whether they're confirmed or not. So we're going to add those two fields. And now we've got, I deleted who it was, right? But we've got those in here now. So, oh, that was in addition to, okay, cool. So let's put, all right, Deepak is going here. And we don't actually need this field because it's redundant to the top level kind of word, right? The top level category is the linked field. So I'm just going to delete this field. And then are they confirmed or not? Is Deepak confirmed? What's up, Deepak? Oh, no. How to get this guy on the schedule. So we now know that he's not confirmed, right? So you could even have, let's create another view. Or I want to copy this full schedule so you can duplicate it. But I want to know who's unconfirmed. And so I only want to see where the person who is unconfirmed, which is everybody right now, because none of these have other people, right? So let me go ahead and do this differently so you can see it without me having to do a bunch more data changing. Let's confirm Deepak and go back here and do confirm speakers. Okay. Now this is the whole schedule where the person is confirmed, right? So I confirmed them on their spreadsheet. I confirmed them over here. But I want to know, is our speaker for the welcome breakfast confirmed? And now I can tell, yes, that person is confirmed. Did that help answer your question, Zuzka? So Rebecca, could you give us an example of something you would want to add to this? And we can try to do it.
Yes, let me think about that. I have one question first.
Great.
If you want things to link, like for instance, we just did speakers and this confirmed, and it seems like there should be a way for it to, you know, the speaker that I choose in this column to pull in the data that they're confirmed or they're not. Do you know how?
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So in this last example, we made new columns for speakers and for whether or not they're confirmed.
These are attached.
Okay.
Is that what you, so
did it update automatically?
Yes.
As soon as you pulled in Deepak?
Deepak, yeah.
Okay,
Deepak,
great.
Yeah, I keep saying Deepak. I'm adding a whole letter. Yeah, you were right. Yes, it does it automatically. So this is the full schedule of confirmed speakers, right? If I say, oh crap, Deepa like actually busted out of, like is no longer coming, and I unconfirm them here, right? They are not going to show up there anymore.
Fabulous.
They won't show up there anymore, but they'll still show up here because I don't have that filter on. That was what you were hoping?
Yep.
Anybody have an, like, I know, I don't know if we're all looking at this same spreadsheet, but anybody have something that we're like, I want to add this to it. How do we do that?
Trying to think of something that would make it more virtual friendly. Like if there were links or
sure,
people's time zones, maybe that was brought up. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Links. That's a good one. So we've got speakers. So these are the sessions essentially, right? Yep. And are the attendees synced to this schedule? So this is like a quiz. Okay, schedule. I'm going to show you something that I don't know how functional it would be, right? It would be, actually, it would be pretty okay, I think, if you had people sign up with this information in their information. So okay. So let's say Kelly RSVP'd to the opening remarks and to lunch. Because Kelly doesn't like going to sessions. She just wants to hang out. So Kelly now knows you got to go to the grand ballroom and you got to go to the president's dining hall. So what I was wondering is if we change the location to be a URL. I just made all of these URLs. Okay, and then it's just, okay. Oh, I did the wrong one. What did I say? Opening remarks. So what I was thinking about was you could have, maybe not. This would be a little bit laborsome. So I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this exact example, but it might give people ideas for other things. So let's just make this for Kelly. This is just going to be the Kelly view. Okay, Kelly Sal. So I want to filter where the name is Kelly Sal. So I can now share, this is something I've done for, if I was coordinating a bunch of like the speakers, this would be like maybe a really good thing to do with the speakers, not the attendees, right? Where there's like a limited amount of people. But if they were like, can you make a custom schedule for me? Like, can you tell me where I'm supposed to be at a particular time? That's what we should have done here. So can you tell me where I'm supposed to be at a particular time? Like, can you do that for me? You could make that happen. by linking. So we're going to do it for Kelly, but just let's imagine Kelly as a speaker instead of a participant. So I have now made this view for Kelly, and I can share this view. I can even make a calendar. It's not going to work for the calendar in this like moment because I'm trying to do everything at once. But it would be better as a calendar. And I could say I just want a calendar for Kelly. And well, let's see if we can do it here. Full schedule calendar. Is Deepa on our calendar again? Yeah. All right. Let's make a calendar for Deepa. So filter where speaker contains Deepa. Okay, there's your calendar, Deepa. And you can now share this view with Deepa just for them. So that would be a really powerful way for like speakers or for organizing events where like that would be such a pain in the butt to make an individual Google Calendar for people. But like this is totally feasible for like 20 or 30 speakers. That wouldn't, and if we add Deepa, like we're like, oh, cool, Deepa's coming to that one and to that one and to that one and that one. Then the calendar is going to update.
Nice.
And if we've shared that view with Deepa, then the view is always live, right? I imagine we've all had that experience of like, can you send me this thing again? And you're like, it's live. I know it's live. It's live, you know? And, or you're like, here's the third version of this spreadsheet that I've downloaded and then exported to you. And you would just never have to do that again. And you would be able to see the view that you knew they were seeing, that like you would have confidence. You'd be like, I know it's there. I know it's there. That was good. That was a good example of the power of making those custom views. Because like, I would love that as like somebody who is, you know, if you had volunteers, if you had, there's so many, you could have all of that information in one place, but you could also have all the views and then only share out the relevant information with the relevant people. Okay, we're coming into the close of the second hour. Has everyone hit saturation point? Or do people still have questions or things they wanted to ask before we wrap up?
I might jump off now. I need to go catch a bus. But thank you so much, Meg. This is great.
Awesome. Bye, Bren. Cool. So I would love to know, in a weird closing versus an opening, like I would love to know who are you people, and what like drew you, or what kind of work do you do that you you might use this for? I know that's a weird way to close, but I'm curious, and I don't want to have folks leave without knowing a little bit more about you. So we'll probably kind of like end the official recording here, and but yeah, I'd love to do that before we all sign off.